Hello everyone, myself Debarati Bandopadhyay, a member of Software Development Group at COPS IITBHU. In this video, I will be demonstrating you how to create a skeleton website in Django. First of all, what does a skeleton website do? It basically provides a directory structure for Django projects during development and deployment. In the previous video, we saw how to set up a Django development environment. So now we have to start a Django project. The command to start a new Django project is Django-admin start project, and then the project name. I will be using the project name local library, and then a period. A period will ensure that all the files that are being installed is in the same directory and not anywhere else. Okay, so our project has been created. Now let us have a look what our files are installed. You can see local library, manage.py, pip file and a pip file lock. So in our local library, we have these files. Now what are these files? The init file that you can see here is an empty file that instructs Python to treat this directory as a Python package. The settings file here, you can see it contains all the website settings, like for example, the registering any applications that we create, the location of our static files, the database configuration, and many things. The first one, asgi.py, it is a standard for Python asynchronous web apps and servers to communicate with each other. The urls.py, this defines the state URL to view mappings. Like while this could contain all the URL mapping code, it is more common to delegate some of the mappings to particular applications. This we'll see later. That's what the purpose of this. And last, the wsgi.py, this is used to help your Django application communicate with web server. In short, you can treat this as a boilerplate. Okay, so the manage.py here, this is script is used to create applications, work with database and start the development web server. Now our next step is to create the catalog application. So for the same, we'll use command python 3 manage.py start app, and then the app name, I'll be using catalog. Okay, so as soon as I entered the command, you saw that here folder named catalog was created, and inside again there are so many files. So let's get a quick check on what these files do. You can add models in models.py, the views in views.py, the tests in test.py, and in the admin.py, the application registration in apps.py, and these all things. The migration folder that you can see over there is used to store the migrations, which basically the files that allow you to automatically update your database as you modify your models. The init.py here, again we saw this file. Now what's the purpose of this file is that it's an empty file basically that created here, so that Django or Python will recognize the folder as a Python package and allow you to use its object within other parts of the project as well. Now after we have created the catalog, now we have to register the catalog application. For this we have to do the rest of the steps in our VS Code. So let's open our project in our VS Code. Okay, so now we are in our VS Code, and here we have to local library and then the settings.py. Here in the installed apps, we have to add a new line that will specify the application configuration object named catalog config that was generated for you when you created the application. So let's add the line. Yes, so the line is created and then a comma at the end. Now our next main task is to specify the database. By default, Django has a database of its own, that is the SQLite 3. You can of course connect any other database with the Django project, but let us go with the default database for the timing. There are other functions like time zone. You can also change the time zone of your project to any other time zone or your local time zone, but here let us keep the same for the time being. Now our next work is in the URLs. Here you can see there are these two lines are there by default, and we have to add a few lines here while creating the skeleton website. So before adding the URL mappings, let me get you a quick intro to what these URL mappings and patterns are. The URL mappings are managed through the URL patterns variable, which is a Python list of path functions. You can see here is a path function. Each path function either associates a URL pattern to a specific view, which will be displayed when the pattern is matched, or with another list of URL pattern testing code. The URL pattern list initially defines a single function that maps all URLs with the pattern admin to the module admin site URLs, which contains the administration application's own URL mapping definitions. Now to add a new list item to the URL list, these lines we have to add. First of all, here from Django.urls we'll import include. Okay, and here in the URL pattern we have to add a path. Okay, so we have added the path here. And now let us redirect the root URL of our site, that is to the URL of the catalog. For this we have to add another line here. We have to import redirect view first from the Django views generic. So let's import that. From Django.views.generic will import redirect view, and in the path we have to add another path here. And yes, it's done. Now you might be wondering why we kept these commas as empty. So we have to leave this first parameter of the path function as empty to imply the forward slash, but if you put here the forward slash like this, then it will pose you an error. So to avoid that, we'll keep it as empty, and this is same as the forward slash. It will take you that part only. Okay. So now we know that Django does not serve static files like CSS, JavaScript or images by default, but these are actually very useful for development of web server. So to do so, while you are creating your site, as a final addition to the URL mapper, you can enable the serving of static files during development by appending these lines that we'll be adding. So we have to import settings from Django config and import static also. So let's add those lines. From Django.conf import settings, and that from Django.conf.urls.static import static, and then we also have to add a line over here. We have to add to the URL patterns, that is static. Yes, so we have added here static settings.static URL and then document root as settings.static root. Yes. So now as the final step, we have to create another file in our catalog folder which will be named urls.py. So let's go to our catalog folder. Here you can see there is no urls file here, so we'll add a URL file, a Python file, and then we have to add few lines. We have to import path and views in this file. So from django.urls we have to import the path and we have to import views as well, and then we have to specify the URL patterns. Currently the URL pattern will be a empty part. Okay, yes, so you can see we have our required changes in our settings folder in the installed apps, this line for catalog apps. In our URLs we have imported these from the Django views, Django URL, Django conf files, and the URL patterns we have changed these. And finally we have created another urls.py file in the catalog. Now after doing all this, we have to test our skeleton website or the website framework. At this point we have created a complete skeleton project. The website doesn't actually do anything yet because we have not yet included the models and all, but it's worth running so as to ensure that none of our changes that we did have broken anything. So before we do that, we have to first run a database migration. So in our next step, first we'll save all these changes. So now we have to run the make migration command. For this we have to come back to our terminal, and here we'll pass the command python 3 manage.py make migrations, and you can see there are no changes detected because there were no models modified. The make migration command basically creates the migration for all applications installed in your project. You can specify the application name as well to just run a migration for a single project. This will give you a chance to check out the code for these migrations before they are applied. Now we also have to pass a migrate command that will apply the migrations to your database. The command for migrate is python 3 manage.py migrate. So the migrations have been applied, and now we have to run the server. To run the server, the command is python 3 manage.py run server. So the local host has been activated, and here if you follow this link you will be led to this place, and don't worry, you will get this error page not found because we have not specified the models yet, and this is just a skeleton website. So yes, our skeleton website has been created. Now this skeleton website will form the basis to populate with site specific settings, paths, module, views, templates, etc. So this was all for this video of setting up a skeleton website of Django, and in the next video we will continue with creating models. Thank you.